Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 40 of the Talking Friars podcast. I'm your host, Ben Fadden here. Today, coming at you after the Padres won the series against the Washington Nationals. It was kind of like a doubleheader, but not really. After obviously what happened last night, um, they had they had to finish the game on Sunday, uh, the sixth, seven, eight, and ninth inning, and then they played a full 9 innings in the series finale. So that's what happened on Sunday. Obviously, the first game of the series was Monday. The start of the second game was Saturday. We're going to get into all of it, including the unfortunate events that happened on Saturday night, what my reaction was, what I'll just keep you up to date on everything that we know so far, and dive into how the Padres did this weekend and what they'll do going forward, the rest of this road trip and the outlook on the division, and stuff like that. So first off, let's start with Game One of this series, which was on Friday, like I mentioned, and this was not a competitive game at all. But if you were a Padre fan like I am, it was amazing to watch, just because of how many different things happened in this game. You know, you had a cycle by Jake Cronenworth, you had a two-homer game by Will Myers, you had a grand slam by Will Myers, you had Jorge Mateo coming off the bench in the blowout, who never really hits, he never really plays, and he hits a homer. Just a great night all around for the Padres. They set a franchise record for the most runs scored in a single game with 24 runs, winning at 24-8. It was like a football score. Um, just an amazing game all around. I took score of this game like I do every full game that I watch, and it was a lot. It was a lot of writing. It was a lot of, circling the diamond around, notating that a run had been scored. It started with a 3-run first inning, and then it continued, with a 7-run second, and then they scored 1 run in the third, fourth, and fifth inning each. 6 runs in the sixth. The only inning of the ball game that they did not score a run in was the seventh inning, where they struck out 3 times for those 3 outs in the inning. Or excuse me, 2 times. Um, and then in the eighth, they score 4 runs, and then they get another run in the ninth. So again, it was just an all-around great offensive game. Obviously, the story of this game is Jake Cronenworth with the cycle. He starts off lining out to shortstop, which I kind of thought at some point that might have costed him, because that ball was hit really hard and that should have went through, but Trey Turner made a good play. He was there. And that could have cost him, because if he, got hurt or Tingler took him out, which obviously he wasn't going to do though, if he knew the situation, that could have cost him, because he had the triple, the homer, and the double. The last thing he had to get was the single, which was weird because it was a nubber. It wasn't a hard hit ball like the lineout was. It was a little nubber that he didn't hit well, but the shift was on, so he was able to beat that out for a single. So that's baseball, really. I mean, you hit it hard, you're out. You hit it bad, really soft, and you're safe to finish the cycle. That's the third Padres cycle in franchise history. Padres fans on Twitter want to say the second cycle in franchise history, just because they don't like Matt Kemp. I don't like Matt Kemp either. But at the same time, it's obviously in the books. He did hit for the cycle in Colorado, the first in Padres franchise history. Will Myers would do it in Colorado at Coors Field a couple years later. And then obviously Cronenworth here, doing it at Nats Park in part of a 24-run game. Again, 24-8. Padres improved to 54-40 in this game. And pitching wise, I did want to go over Chris Paddack. He did not start out well, right? The Padres give him 3 runs of support. Then he comes right out in the first inning and he coughs it right up. And now Padre fans are like, uh-oh, this is not the start we needed from our pitching staff or pitching rotation, coming after the second half. I thought this would be a good, mental break for Paddack, that all-star break. He could talk with his brother, do whatever he needed to do to get his mind off baseball, or just get back, to being the Chris Paddack that we saw for, 5 starts this year after he came off the COVID IL. But that didn't really happen in the first inning, gives up those 3 runs. The fastball command just wasn't really there. He was, yanking fastballs away, just didn't have the command, but it did come back the rest of his outing. And the rest of his outing, he only gave up one more run. Um, I believe it was to the Juan Soto solo home run, which was Soto's one. He hit two homers in the game. That was his first homer that he gave up. But Paddack, I thought he rebounded well. Definitely something to build on, something that you want to see if you're Jay Stingler, if you're a Padre fan, because that definitely makes the rotation much deeper if Paddack can perform like he did, innings 2 through 5, right? So he finishes with 80 pitches. Those 3 runs in the first cost him, but obviously he got 18 runs of support while he was in the game, and obviously 24 runs in total. So hopefully it's something that he can build off of. He only had 2 strikeouts, but sometimes when he doesn't have strikeouts, um, he has better performances because he's pitching to contact, weak pop ups. That Cardinal start at Petco comes to mind, where I don't think he had a bunch of strikeouts that game, but he was getting a lot of weak contact, pop ups to shallow right field, stuff like that. So the strikeouts is something that doesn't need to happen for Paddack to have success. And so, again, just start to build off. If I was Chris Paddack, just don't even pay attention to the first inning. You just didn't have the command, but then you were able to bounce back. 22 hits for the Padres in this game compared to just 12 for the Nats. Now they did give up 8 runs, so that's usually when you give up 8 runs, you're going to lose the ball game. So that's definitely not something that to be proud of in this game. Miguel Diaz gave up 4 runs, but if you're gonna, be glass half full like I usually like to be, James Norwood and Nabil Chrismat came in. They didn't give up any runs in the seventh, and then the eighth and ninth for Norwood. Norwood would be sent down because there was no need to have him with Drew Pomerantz activated for the Saturday night's game. But again, just to cap off this game, 24 runs, franchise record. They left 9 on base, but that the offense did not care. They just kept hitting and hitting and hitting. 5 home runs in this game for the Padres. Obviously, Jake Cronenworth hit one in the 5th inning to go be 3/4 of the way through the cycle. Tommy Pham hit one, which was good to see. Will Myers hit 2. Jorge Mateo hit 1. Myers with the grand slam. Padres have the most grand slams since the start of 2020 that season. Obviously, that's where Slam Diego started. So definitely a great offensive game all around. So let's move on to game 2. Started Saturday, ended Sunday, or excuse me, yeah, ended on Sunday. Was finished on Sunday because of some very unfortunate events that happened in the middle of the game on Saturday. So we're going to get to that. Prior to the game, like I said, the Padres activated Blake Snell and Drew Pomerantz. Pomerantz hasn't really been healthy this year. He hasn't been as healthy as, fans have wanted. But he looked good on Sunday, which is definitely a good sign that you want because of how how much the bullpen needs it because of how much the bullpen's been used this year, and 2, just because he was one of those big bullpen guys, those big 4 closers, Melanson, Pagan, Pomerantz, and Kella that you wanted to have going into the season, and he just hasn't been healthy. Keone Kella obviously isn't healthy. He had Tommy John. He hasn't been a factor. I'm sure a lot of people even forgot that he's on the team or was on the team. But anyway, good job from Pomerantz that we saw in the second game on Sunday. But so he was activated prior to Saturday's game. He would not get in though. To start this game, it was the Fernando Tatis Jr. show. He tagged from third base on a shallow pop-up to Trey Turner. He saw that Trey Turner's, momentum was going towards the left field gate there. And so he took advantage of that. He knew it was going to take a good throw for Turner to throw him out and more. And Turner made a great throw right to the catcher. And Tatis's speed just paid off. Tatis is one of the fastest guys in the league. Obviously, he showed how high his IQ was there. He's done that multiple times, maybe not the same spot, but he's done that before. You know, the Pirates game in 2019 in his rookie year when he tagged up on a even shallower ball, I believe, to second base. He tags. That was like the play heard around the world. Just great display of athleticism from Fernando there. And that show would continue, really. Um, he avoided a tag coming back to third base later in the game. He stretched a single into a double that was, just a regular single to right center field, and he pushed it to a double because he saw the outfielder kind of being chillaxed about it. Um, just the Tatis show, and it would continue during the unfortunate events that happened that halted the game, that pushed it back to Sunday, which we'll get to. But before that, I did want to get to Blake Snell. He started this game. Obviously, as I said, he was activated alongside Drew Pomerantz. The Padres played with 25 guys instead of 26 on Friday. So there was no need to make an additional roster move for Snell. It was only for Pomerantz, so they optioned Norwood to AAA. By the way, Norwood came back up. So he must have been on a taxi squad. He came back up on Sunday for the 27th guy, I believe. But Blake Snell Padres had a 5-1 lead in the third inning. But then Snell, kind of like Paddack in the first inning on Friday, Snell lost his command. A single to Trey Turner, a 4-pitch walk to Soto. Soto has great, vision. He has great plate discipline, but those pitches just weren't very close to the strike zone and where Snell obviously wanted them. Then Ryan Zimmerman hits a homer. Thank you everyone that came on that Instagram live with Jacob and I during the third inning, kind of a watch along. I told Jacob, with Ryan Zimmerman coming up, he walked Soto. It's not the worst thing in the world that Snell did that because Soto obviously is one of the best hitters on the planet. We saw that on Sunday in the second game there, the series finale. But it wasn't the worst thing in the world at that spot to walk Soto because you bring up Ryan Zimmerman, who hasn't had consistent at bats this year because he hasn't started, every game. He's not the regular starting first baseman, and he's just not as great of a hitter as Juan Soto is. Juan Soto is probably the best bat to ball hitter that the Nationals have ever had. Bryce Harper was a great hitter, but he was not a great bat to ball hitter or as great of a bat to ball hitter as Soto was. Maybe in the 2015 MVP season, but other than that, Soto plate discipline is off the charts. So bringing up a veteran, a guy who's probably retired at the end of the year, instead of facing Juan Soto, felt like a good spot there, a good decision. I'm not saying Snell was trying to walk Soto, but he was trying to be careful with him. But Zimmerman made Snell pay, breaking ball down the middle, deposited it to the outfield seats. That made it 5-4 San Diego. The next batter, he was behind the count to Josh Harrison before the double. Another 4-pitch walk after that to Jordy Mercer. Later in the inning, he hits Victor Robles, but then gets out of it. But that pitch that he hits Robles on, it bounced. He totally spiked the ball. So again, not a good pitch. Just wasn't executing his pitches, in that inning. So you got to still a little bit, worry about Blake Snell. I get it was on the road, and he's really bad on the road this year. At some point, he had an ERA over 9 on the road during that Washington start, and he had a ERA under 3 at home. But at the same time, when you're supposed to be one of the best starters in the rotation, like you're supposed to be, on paper going into the year, former Cy Young winner, it shouldn't matter where you pitch. You should be pretty good either way. But I just feel like sometimes he gets flustered. So obviously the command's not there. And when he's flustered, like I just mentioned, the command's not there. Maybe he gets in his head a little bit, like Paddack has admitted sometimes that he does, that Paddack does. So again, I don't know anything about that, but I'm just thinking that's, visually when you watch these games, Snell, it seems like he gets a little bit flustered at times, and that could come as a detriment. But so just a bad command. 4 earned runs, 6 hits, 4 walks, the 1 home run on 74 pitches. about 55% of his pitches were strikes. That's not really good enough, in my opinion. I don't think it's good enough if you ask Snell either. Now that one bad inning that I just went over obviously attributes to that why the strike percentage was lower than it needs to be. Um, Usually, I think pitchers, want 2/3 of their pitches strikes, right? But that obviously didn't happen with Snell. Hopefully, that strike percentage can go up because he has the stuff. Some those the fastballs that he throws seems like they have some zip on him, and he can definitely get strikeouts with that pitch. So it's just a matter of being consistent in the strike zone, and getting quick outs. Really, I think would be beneficial to Snell, obviously, so he can go deeper into games and save a tax bullpen at least this year. They weren't taxed going into this because obviously the All-Star break, but this year they're the most used bullpen in the league. Um, as for the first four at bats, Tatis went 4 for 4. RBI single to left, made it 6-4 Padres. Cronenworth had an RBI single to left field through the 5-5 hole on the shift, made it 7-4. And then in the bottom of the sixth is where a really, really, really scary scene happened. Game was delayed, field was cleared. Watching the game on Bally Sports San Diego with Tony Gwynn Jr. and Don Orsillo commenting, they're not in the ballpark at Nationals Park, which is a shame. Jesse Agler and the radio guys need to be there as well. They're allowed to have full stands. They should be able to have the radio and TV guys there too. So that's another story, but they were not in the ballpark at that time. And so they were literally just like us, pretty much like us on, I know they were in the ball at Petco broadcasting, but they're like us on the couch watching the game from a monitor, from a TV, trying to, describe what's happening. And they have no idea what's happening. They didn't hear the gunshots, they weren't at National Park, you know. But I think they did a tremendous job. I wasn't listening to the radio, but I heard that people really liked how Scanlon and Agler were calm and just really laid it out what was happening, at least what they thought was happening, what they were seeing on the monitors. But again, they weren't there. So that's a big disadvantage for them compared to like the Nationals broadcasters on Masson and to their radio guys on 106.7 The Fan in DC. They're there. So I'm not sure if they heard the gunshots, but because their headsets in. But I think they still have the advantage because they can see the whole stadium, people running up, the concourse. Now people did not know where the gunshots were. Supposedly there was a round of gunshots. They were happening outside the stadium, outside the third base gate. People did not know that, obviously. So this is where all panic set in. You saw fans right behind the plate, totally evacuating that section, running into the suite or whatever that they have right behind home plate. You saw fans running up the concourse because they weren't sure if the shooter was like in center field or something. You saw fans in left field running out of the ballpark because they maybe thought that the shooter was inside the ballpark. They didn't know it was outside. And then they ran back in because they noticed or heard from the PA announcer that the shooter was outside. So it's just, I would not want to be in that situation, obviously, a scary situation. A lot was made of what, Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado did, running out, opening the third base gate and allowing, their families and some Nationals fans, because there was some Nationals fans that went into the third base dugout for safety, because again, they didn't know where the shots were. So great acts from them, really showed how great people they are. But I did want to give props to Jurickson Profar and to Will Myers. Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado are the two, main players that are getting a lot of play in this because, they're the two big names. They're the two faces of the franchise. But Jurickson Profar and Fernando Tatis Jr., it looks like, now it was a blurry view, but it looks like zoomed in that Tatis and Profar were the first ones that ran out to the third base gate, opened it, and then Profar and Tatis carried, it looked like Profar's kids, into the dugout, so they wouldn't slow up the crowd coming into the dugout. Now, so I'm not trying to say that Myers don't deserve it. They definitely deserve it. They were great letting fans in, but I did not see that. It looked like Tatis and Profar were the ones that started, open the gate, let fans in, but just a tremendous act all around. Jace Tingler iterated that, reiterated that before the game, before the conclusion of this game on Sunday morning. He had tears in his eyes just talking about how great of a group of guys he has as the manager of this team. He was frightened, obviously, because of the bullpen, right? If I was the manager in that situation, man, that would be really, really hard to be in that spot because you don't know where the gunshots are. You want everyone in the dugout. Then you have fans coming in the dugout, so you want your players to be in the tunnel so the fans can take up the dugout spots. But then you realize, where's my family? His family was not there, but I don't believe. But players' families, like Tatis, didn't have his family there, but he mentioned pregame on Sunday that he wanted, the players, his teammates' families are like his family. This situation, it's not players and fans. There's not a barrier between players and fans. Everyone's human. So you want every human in that ballpark to be safe. And so just a great act by them. But going back to if I was Jace Tingler in that spot, the bullpen is way out in left center field, I believe, at Nats Park. And what are they? You don't know where the gunshots are. What are you supposed to do in that situation? Your bullpen's 100 or plus so yards away from you. You don't want them running into the dugout when they're on an open field when you might, you're assuming that the shooter's somewhere, in a building up top or something, right? You don't want them running across the field. That could be extremely dangerous. So just wondering what they did, maybe they were, taking cover in the bullpen somewhere, but just a really, really scary scene watching on TV. Again, great job by Don and Tony. They pretty much explained it as best as you could. I kind of speculated on the Talking Friars Twitter because we didn't know what was happening, but I said maybe a shooter. And unfortunately, I was right. I'm glad it was outside the ballpark, not in. But at the same time, I believe 3 people were shot. One was a fan that was that was at the game, I believe, coming out of the ballpark. So just a really, really horrific scene there. Um, the game resumed Sunday at 10:05 a.m. Obviously, people's minds may not have been fully on it, but at the end of the day, when you're playing baseball, I think that that's a good, you know, get away from what was happening. And so it seemed like the Padres were able to take their minds off of this because they tacked on 2 more runs, and they ended up winning this game 10-6. Combined for 34 runs in the first 2 games of this series. Obviously, 24 runs with the Jake cycle, the Myers grand slam, 2-homer game. Fernando Mateo homering in the first game. Then in the second game, a 10-run, explosion there, tacking on 2 more runs on the FAM RBI and the air in the conclusion of the game on Sunday before the series finale. Great offense all around. And they improved it in this after this, win 55-40. I feel like they had a good, shot to sweep. I get Max Scherzer was on the mound, but the Padres obviously had success against them the last time out. Joe Musgrove's on the mound. He's been their second best starter. So moving to that Sunday game, kind of just the events that happened. This was a very roller coaster game. Obviously, the most roller coaster-ish game. I know that's not a word, but roller coaster-ish type game going into after the All-Star break, obviously with the blowouts, the first 2 games. The Padres in this game, they, dug themselves in a hole because of Joe Musgrove struggling in 1 inning. Then they come back. They were down by 4 at one point. Hosmer with the 3-run homer. Jerks and Profar hits a solo homer. Manny Machado with the go-ahead 2-run homer to make it 6-4. Then the Nats tie it up on the Soto homer. They take the lead on the Soto homer. Then Grisham ties it up in the 9th with the single to score Mateo, who had just ran for Rivas, I believe, and stole second, stole third. So just roller coaster game. Unfortunately, the Padres would lose this game on the walk-off by Alcides Escobar, who homered earlier in the game. But a lot to get to. Musgrove hit Trey Turner in the head in the 3rd this was Musgrove's bad inning where it kind of spiraled on him. Again, Paddack had a bad inning in the first inning. Snell had that one inconsistent inning in his start before the shooting happened on Saturday. And then Musgrove obviously had a bumpy third inning, which definitely is why he didn't, go as far as he would like and why he only went, about 80 pitches in this game. Um, like I said, Musgrove hit Turner in the head in the third. He'd later score, so the Nats took advantage of that mistake. Um, Josh Harrison RBI double. Andrew Stevenson's RBI single made it 3-0. Tres Pereira, who hasn't had much big league time, he had an RBI single, made it 4-0 in the third inning. Like I said, the Padres would come back with 3 home runs. Eric Hosmer hit his 8th home run of the year. A lot of Hosmer haters didn't see a whole lot of them. A lot of them on Twitter joking. I've never said anything bad about Hosmer ever. Hopefully he keeps doing this. Yeah. Well, I have receipts. I have a screenshot that talks about how Hosmer sucks. Hosmer is bleep. Hosmer is the one thing, something to the effect of Hosmer's the one thing standing in the way of the Padres winning a World Series. Blah, 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 blah. He hits his 8th homer of the year. Obviously, a 3-hit night, I believe, on Friday. Absolutely exploded out of this All-Star break. Maybe it was the break he needed. Jacob and I discussed that on, I believe, the last episode. And, we discussed how Hosmer, maybe this break, Jacob wanted Hosmer, if he kept struggling, to sit out a week. And I said, well, I don't think they're going to need that because Hosmer just had his week to sit out. This was his week to hit the reset button, take his mind off baseball, whatever he had to do. And it looks like it's really, really, showing off here. It's paying off because he's off to an electric start. The 3-hit night Friday, just squaring up the ball. A couple more hits on Sunday, I believe. The 8th home run of the year, obviously, was a big one. That made it 4-3 in the fourth, 109 miles an hour off the bat, a 22-degree launch angle, 410 feet to right field, over the right field wall. And in the 5th inning, a big spot for Joe Musgrove. This could have while the Padres did come back at one point, at 2 points, obviously, actually, with the 4-run comeback, then the 1-run comeback in the 9th. This could have gotten out of control with the bases loaded, no outs in the 5th inning. He got the double play on the line out to Cronenworth, who threw it to Tatis for the double play. Then the bases were loaded with 2 outs, and he struck out Max Scherzer to keep the game where it was at. I get Max Scherzer's a pitcher. He's a pretty good hitting pitcher. But the fact of the matter is, bases loaded, he got out of it to keep his team in the game. And I don't think that's going to get discussed enough in this game. They wouldn't have had a chance to win the game, I don't think, if that happened, if, that got out of control there, if he wasn't able to get out of it. Obviously, if he didn't get Scherzer out, the top of the lineup was coming up. If he didn't get, I believe, Harrison, who had the line out, if he didn't get out, then the lineup, regardless if Scherzer got out or not, that lineup would have came over to the top of the order. So just great job all around. A great ending to Musgrove's outing, despite the rocky inning that he had. His final line: 5 innings, 4 runs, 4 earned runs, 8 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Moving to the 7th, Profar kicked off that inning with the game-tying homer to right field off Max Scherzer, 431 feet. Profar obviously is not one of those guys that has a lot of pop, or at least shows it. He's not going to, blow you away with a lot of homers. He's not going to get a lot of consistent playing time because of how good Grisham usually is, how, solid Tommy Pham has been at the top of the order lately for the last month and change. But he's one of those utility players that I think is going to come up big late in the year or in the postseason. Hopefully no one gets hurt. But late in games, or if you need someone to have a day off, at the plate, Profar is going to give you good at bats. Whether it ends in a pop out to first, sometimes it does. But at the end of the day, those good at bats will, increase the pitch count. It could get the team, energized, more interested in the at bat. And a lot of times those things are going to fall through. And he didn't need that one to fall through in the seventh. The ball went over the fence. Manny hits a 2-run homer um, to give the Padres the 2-run lead, 6-4. Manny Chance kind of gave me the chills a little bit. You could hear it on the broadcast. Tony Gwynn Jr. mentioned it. You could definitely hear it. Padre fans definitely representing. And it seems like Padre fans, you know, you look at the big market teams, right? The Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cubs, teams like that. They have fans all over the place. Some are bandwagon fans, like Dodger fans. Those that are living in San Diego and they're Dodger fans, or those that were born in San Diego and are Dodger fans. You can't convince me that you're a true Dodger fan. You're a bandwagon fan. But Padre fans, you aren't really bandwagon fans. We have no World Series wins. Haven't been to the World Series since 1998. Haven't been past the NLDS in who knows how long. They finally get to the playoffs last year in a shortened season for the first time in 14 years. Yes, there's a lot of people that are probably kind of like the LeBron effect in NBA. They're Tatis fans. But with that said, the Padres just don't have a lot of winning, so it's hard to be a bandwagon fan. Again, there were those Tatis fans, but Padres have showed out on the road this year, Padre fans, and so obviously they've showed out at home. I've been in those crowds. It's been absolutely amazing. The best environment I've ever been in during a Padres season in my life at Petco. But props to Padres fans. I did want to mention that. You could hear them. You saw people dressing up as Tatis, a kid and an adult, kid on Saturday and an adult on Sunday. Just great, great fan atmosphere on the road, at home, all around for the Padres this year. Obviously, the Manny chance came after that 2-run homer. The 2-run go-ahead home run made it 6-4. But in the eighth, you know, Emilio Pagan comes into the game. Drew Pomeranz had been used earlier in the game. Austin Adams and Tim Hill, who are other two high leverage guys that Tingler usually goes to, they were used in a blowout game in this at the conclusion of the second game of the series, which kind of was a head scratcher. You think you'd go to like a Miguel Diaz with a 6-run lead like that, or a Nabil Chrismat, but so they were already used, and so Emilio Pagan was like the only other option that he had. Um, you know, in terms of the bigger name guys or guys that have been in those situations, I'm not a big believer in Emilio Pagan this year in those big situations, and he definitely showed it. He gave up, I think, 4 runs today, 2 home runs. He gave up a home run to Alcides Escobar. So to put that into perspective, Alcides Escobar hasn't homered since that, obviously not including that home run. He hasn't homered in years. He's been playing, I think, overseas with the Royals. He didn't have a lot of pop. He just literally does not have any pop. He's like Jorge Mateo, but gets everyday playing time now pretty much because Starlin Castro is facing some assault allegations, so he's not on the roster. There aren't a lot of options to go to, so he's getting everyday playing time. Not a lot of pop, top of the order, single there, double there maybe, but he went oppo on Emilio Pagan. So that is not a sight Padre fans want to see. He would give up another home run to Juan Soto. Now on Twitter, a lot of Padre fans, you heard Padre fans, you know, kind of griping, pissed off at Emilio Pagan because, oh, Emilio Pagan, that's the one guy you can't throw a pitch over the plate to. Now, if I wasn't watching the game in this situation, Juan Soto, by the way, hit the go-ahead 2-run home run after a long at-bat. There was a base open, so obviously people, they're going to play Monday morning quarterback, and they're going to say, oh, why'd you continue pitching to Soto? I was actually in favor of pitching to Soto. Fans on Twitter, I'm going to get back to this point. They said, you can't throw it over the middle of the plate to Soto. But if you look where that pitch was, you can look it up on the Twitter at Talking Friars. I posted it where the pitch was at contact. It was not a bad pitch on that 3-2 pitch. That ball was right on the black on the outside corner. Fernando Tatis Jr. would probably strike out or foul that pitch off because he's not good at going the other way. Now, is Juan Soto the best guy in baseball at going the other way? Probably, but that's not a bad pitch. Juan Soto didn't even think the ball was gone when he hit it, That wasn't not a bad pitch. And if you take into effect the pitch before, the umpire was strike 3, and the umpire didn't give it to Pagan. Fifth pitch of that bat. It's on the Talking Friars Twitter account as well. That pitch is in the strike zone, low inside corner of the strike zone. He calls it a ball. That should have been strike three. You get out the best hitter in the Nationals lineup, and instead you make a pretty dang good pitch. It's 3-2. You don't want to walk the guy on 3-2 when you've already, wasted all that energy in the at bat. He makes a good pitch on the black of the outside corner, and Soto, he hit it. He hit a homer on pretty much over an imaginary wall. And you'll get the joke if you were following along on the Twitter account, because Tatis hit a ball in this game, a home run, it seemed like, that just died. Grisham hit a ball, I believe, that died in the outfield. Tatis thought it was gone. He didn't do this big bat flip or anything, but he thought the ball was gone earlier, and it wasn't. It was a fly out to the warning track. This ball wasn't. It kept going. So again, now, was Pagan good? No, he was not. I'm gonna admit that, obviously. I'm not a big supporter of him in these high leverage situations, but I will support him that I thought it was a pretty good pitch to Soto on the 3-2 count. Just considering the situation, you've already had a long at bat against him. The umpire just screwed you on the pitch before, didn't give you the strike three call. And it was a good pitch on the outer side of the plate. Sometimes you have to tip your cap to one of the best hitters in the game and say, you know what? Yeah, you beat me. That was a good homer. That was a great swing. You use your legs. Props to you. You used your ballpark to your advantage. Good for you. Good for Pagan. The Padres ended up coming back in this game, down 7-6 in the ninth. Jorge Mateo would pinch run, steals second, steals third. Grisham with the bloop single scores him to tie the game. This was really interesting and kind of head scratching to me, at least if I was a Nationals fan. You get Jorge Mateo on base, Brad Hand, obviously a lefty, so he can see if Mateo's stealing or not. And he was pretty much fixated on the batter. There was one out, I believe, when Mateo pinch ran. Or no outs, actually. Kim got out. He's still second when on the strikeout, but there were no outs in that situation. Jorge Mateo is the fastest guy in the Padres. He's obviously pinch running because he's going to look to steal second. Don't you want to pay a little bit more attention to him on first base? I would have. And he didn't do that. And Mateo not only steals second, but he steals third. When the runner's in scoring position and you have a slider like Brad Hand does, I'd probably pay attention to Mateo a little bit, or at least have Trey Turner or Alcides Escobar at second, kind of keep him close a little bit, or have the third baseman not play so far off the line or off the bag. But literally, no one was paying attention. No one cared. And that actually paid off, because I'm not so sure Mateo would have scored if Grisham on that bloop single. That wasn't a hard hit single. It wasn't too deep in the outfield. And maybe Mateo doesn't have a great read on it and he doesn't score. So that runner on third, yeah, there was no wild pitch, but Grisham made him pay, and Mateo scored. He maybe wouldn't have scored if he was only on second base and he didn't steal third, and the Nats didn't even look to care about him. So that was very, very peculiar for me. Good if I'm a Padres fan, right? Because Mateo can just walk around the diamond pretty much and say, okay, here's a tie game now, because Grisham's going to hit a bloop single over your head. But sadly, Melanson couldn't get it done. I tweeted on the Twitter account that, Melanson coming in again in a non-save situation. I didn't have a great feeling about it. Who are you going to go to, though? Your all-star or Daniel Camarena, who got called up a matter of weeks ago? Camarena was a great story, hit the grand slam, did pretty well on the mound, but has he pitched in big situations like that in a tie game in the ninth inning in the big leagues? No, I don't think so. So I would have gone to Melanson just because Pomerantz was already burned, Pagan was already burned, Tim Hill was already burned, Austin Adams was already burned. At the end of the day, like, what options were you going to go to? Maybe Chris Matt, but he's more of a long guy. You don't know what's going to happen in the Atlanta series coming up this week. So I would have still gone to Melanson, but I still didn't feel confident in him, just because he hasn't done great in non-save situations. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it just seems like whenever it's a non-save situation, or or the Padres have the lead, going back to that Cincinnati game, 4-run lead. It's not technically a save situation because it's not a 3-run lead, and he chokes it. So I'm not here to bash Melanson. He's been awesome. He's the closer, all-star, deserves it. I can't be happy, couldn't be more happy for him. He's a great teammate, it seems like. He's great on social media, it looks like. Not gonna bash him, but I still was not confident just because of the track record, and he definitely didn't pitch his best. In the ninth, um, I should mention though, by the way, before we get to Melanson, Manny Machado had bases loaded, 2 outs, chance to take the lead, strikes out looking. Um, that was on him. I'm sure he looked at the film after the game. He probably's already looked at it, and that pitch was the pitch that he got frustrated on, the breaking ball. I think it was the first strike of the at bat that he kind of got mad at. That was a strike. And then the third strike, um, strike three, where it seemed like he got irritated, probably at himself. That was a strike as well. So there was nothing to be mad at the umpire about in that at bat. But strikeout looking, obviously don't like striking out looking. But he hit the 2-run home run early in the game. So I'm not going to sit here and try to bash Manny Machado. I'm a glass half full Padre fan. Even when it comes to Eric Hosmer, even when it comes to Will Myers, even when it comes to Chris Paddack and Blake Snell, I'm a glass half full guy. So I'm not looking to bash players unless they, went 3-14 on a stretch. That was the only time where I got like really heated at guys or at the team as a whole. I'm not here to bash guys. I can bash the team sometimes because they have high expectations. They're supposed to be playing better at times and they just don't. And you're a fan. You get emotional sometimes, and that's that. But Manny strikes out looking with a chance to put his team ahead and give Melanson a safe situation. That didn't happen. And then Melanson allows base runners. He hit Victor Robles in the elbow to get him on first. That got a runner into scoring position. And then Alcides Escobar, again, not a guy with power. He almost hits this one out to the warning track off Grisham's glove. Grisham kind of had to do a Willie Mays, attempt at catching the ball over his shoulder, hit his glove, not an error because it wasn't in his glove. I think he closed the glove and it hit the webbing on the outside of the glove. So that's not an error. A walk-off double or single, whatever they said it was in the scorebook. But it was just a hung pitch. Right when he hit it, I was like, uh-oh, that's hit really well. Grisham's I thought it was probably gone, first row, but it didn't go out deep part of the park. But again, just Melanson wasn't sharp. He wasn't sharp. He was sharper than Pagan, obviously. Just he wasn't sharp. Maybe he had a little bit of rust with the rest coming off the All-Star game, only 9 pitches in that game. But just wasn't sharp. Left pitches over the middle of the plate. Let Alcides Escobar have hard contact, like that homer that he hit off Pagan. This one almost got out. A frustrating way to end the series. Obviously, so much that went on. Padres lose this one 8-7. Now they're 55-41, 5 games back of the Giants in the division. Rockies, Charlie Blackmon had a walk-off against the Dodgers, so at least that's a silver lining in this. Dodgers did not win. Giants did not win, I believe. So they didn't lose any games per se in the standings. But with that said, that would have been a good opportunity for the Padres to really, really, gain a game, obviously, gain some ground in the division, sweep the Nationals, win a game that had Max Scherzer pitching, going into Atlanta to face a injury-riddled team, a team that has not lived up to their expectations, probably the most disappointing National League team of the season. Obviously, without their star now in Ronald Acuna Jr., not great pitching. Mike Soroka's out, guys like that. This was an opportunity that was missed, Obviously got in the hole with Musgrove. They came back, obviously. That would have been their 23rd comeback win if they had kept the lead. If Pagan hadn't blown up, if Machado maybe would have come through in the ninth. So there were opportunities to win this game. It obviously didn't happen. And it was disappointing that it didn't happen. And it was disappointing for Alcides Escobar again to beat the Padres, Again, a time you're never going to be mad, right? When you get a series win, especially with the circumstances, especially how you scored 24 runs in the first game out of the All-Star break. So you can't be more happy. Um, but they could have saved some more of those runs, obviously, for Sunday. Obviously, Sunday, the second game on Sunday, the series finale. Obviously, a lot of emotions happened. Obviously, I wasn't at the game, clearly, but a lot of emotions. Probably gonna be would have probably hard for the Padres to get up and go play on Sunday after what happened with the shootings. Um, it's one of those things. I've never been involved in that at a ballpark, and I sure hope that never happens. But I think that's an opportunity to tell all of you that are listening. There's a reason why Petco Park before the game lays out those instructions of what stairwells to take, what exits to take if something happens, if an emergency evacuation happens. Pay attention to that. Don't just be eating your nachos. Pay attention to that. And if something does happen, Petco Park is an open field. It is one of those. It is not a. It's a pretty. I think it would probably be one of the easier ballparks for something to happen, just because of how open it is in the outfield. There's hotels and big buildings surrounding the outfield. Park in the Park is obviously open, the Gallagher Square. So it's one of those things where that's one of those ballparks that are probably prone of that happening. There's the tall building way up top along the first baseline, the new apartments that just came in there. So that's just be aware when you're at the ball game, please, because that's something that definitely could happen at Petco. I'm not saying that it's going to, or obviously I'm not. That's the worst thing to ever even imagine. You don't want to go to a ballpark and say, "Uh-oh, we might have to leave our seats or something." You're going in the ballpark to watch a Padre win, to watch Fernando Tatis Jr. But it's a reminder that sometimes things happen. There's people in this world that just aren't great human beings. They have something wrong in their mind or something. So just be aware of that. But just takeaways 55 and 41, like I said, you're going to be happy when you win a series. Um, like I said, what happened during the series, excuse me, 24 runs, the shooting, um, and then facing Max Scherzer Sunday, not an easy task. So I'm overall happy with what I saw, but missed opportunity to sweep. And those sweeps, I think, can come pretty huge. I know it's not a divisional opponent, but like I said, the Giants and the Dodgers, they both lost. And that would have been an opportunity for the Padres to be 4 games back before the Giants and Dodgers beat each other up amid a 4-game series um, against each other. The Dodgers and Giants will play each other in a 4-game series this week. Right, starting Monday. That would have been a good chance to gain in the standings, maybe win the series in Atlanta, which I'll get to now. Just felt like a missed opportunity. Obviously, had the lead, came back from a deficit twice. Just couldn't get it done. But a series win overall, so you got to be happy. They gained games in the series. Started, after the All-Star break, 6 games back. Now 5. If they can slowly keep doing that, plenty of time in the season, plenty of games, like we mentioned on episode, I think 39 of the podcast. Me and Jacob with the second half schedule, plenty of opportunities for the Padres to gain games against the Giants and the Dodgers directly. A lot of games against, I think, at 19 games combined. So as long as they, stay in it briefly, start, gaining games in the division, you got to be happy. So I am. I'm overall happy with what happened. Just missed opportunities on Sunday. Um, 55 and 41, like I said, going into this Atlanta series, Yu Darvish on the mound on Monday. Obviously, the Atlanta Braves are not the Atlanta Braves that people saw watching national television last year, watching the postseason. Freddie Freeman, the reigning MVP, has been playing all right. Ozzie Albies an all-star. But other than that, I mean, what can you say? They've had injuries, obviously. Ronald Acuna Jr. out. They just acquired Jock Peterson. So it could say that they're all in, but they don't have a team that can truly contend for a World Series, in my view. Just injuries. Things just have not gone their way. Now the Mets are struggling. Jacob deGrom's hurt. Francisco Lindor's hurt. So there could be some movement in the top of the division. So everyone except the Marlins pretty much is in the division in the NL East in the hunt. So that's why you could see that's why the Braves, have made moves. They got Steven Vogt, Jock Peterson, like I mentioned, just in time to play the Padres. Peterson plays well against the Padres. So just good timing for the Braves' sake. But I think, the expectation going into the series, the Padres should win this, obviously. You have your ace going Monday, that should be a win, right? Um, Ryan Weathers, he could start this week, I believe, if I'm remembering from his interview he did with Ben and Woods this week. But the rotation is not set yet. We can see, I can check right here if Jace Tingler, if he's made any, announcements as to, the pitching. Yu Darvish will pitch tomorrow, like I said, 4:20 p.m. Pacific time, first pitch. He will face a guy named Kyle Muller. Not surprised if you haven't heard of him. ERA over 3. Tuesday, Tuki Toussaint. He has no record for the Braves. He's pitching. Haven't named a starter for Tuesday. Haven't named a starter for Wednesday. Tuesday's game, 4:20 Pacific time, first pitch. Wednesday, a day game, 9:20 Pacific time. Charlie Morton, who pitched huge for the Rays, came up huge last year in the postseason. He pitched the series finale. No starter, obviously, for Wednesday before the Padres end their 10-game road trip after the All-Star break with the Miami Marlins in Miami at owner of the Marlins, Derek Cheater's house at Lone Depot Park is, I think, what they call it. Terrible name, but at least they got the Marlins sculpture out of the outfield. Anyway, so that's the episode. I hope you enjoyed. Padres come up with a series win. You got to be happy with it, right? You got to be happy. Got to be happy with the way that the Padres performed, considering the circumstances. They gain a game on the Padres and on the Giants and the Dodgers in the division. Just like I said, just screeching back just a little bit, scratching back just little by little. It's going to be definitely important because of how many games the Padres have, make it easier on themselves. And maybe if they start winning these games against the Dodgers and Giants when they play them, starting late August against the Dodgers at Petco, maybe they can gain a lead in the division, but that's a long way off. Again, thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 40 of the Talking Friars podcast. Padres 55-41 going into Atlanta. Until next time, this has been Ben Fadden. Let's go Padres. We'll talk to you later.